Ted, you scared me. Are you okay?
I want to make an appointment.
Richmond starts the new season with 7 consecutive ties and adds one more to the tally when Danny takes a penalty that kills the club's mascot, Earl. Danny's morale and performance hits rock bottom as a result, and Dr. Sharon Fieldstone is brought in to help him get back to his feet. However, it doesn't seem like the doctor and Ted get off on the right foot, as his history with couples therapy becomes an issue that foments distrust. While Danny tries to rescue himself from the pits, Rebecca tries to mingle again in the hopes of finding love. But she's forced to come to the realization that her current date isn't the one for her. Roy, on the other hand, hasn't been lying on a bed of roses. He had to retire after his knee injury in the Man City match that relegated Richmond, and has been trying to face life after professional soccer. At the moment, he thinks it's better to coach kids than oblige Keeley's suggestion for punditry. Jamie leaves Man City for a reality TV show in order to defy his dad. But all doesn't go as planned, and he meets an early eviction. Rejected by Man City and a couple of other clubs, Jamie is forced to go asking to be let back into Richmond. His meeting with Ted ends in yet another disappointment, but his old teammates don't know that. The news of an impending reunion doesn't sit well with them, especially Sam, and Ted is forced to clear the air. Typical of Ted, he tries extending a friendly arm to Dr. Sharon, but is pushed away by her stern demeanor. On a happier note, Keeley finally gets Roy to try out the pundit gig. He brings in his characteristic uncouthness and bluntness, and the audience loves him for it. Back in Ted's office, all 3 coaches, including Higgins, discuss Jamie's return to Richmond. Baird and Nathan are against the idea, but Higgins and Ted support it, sealing Jamie's return to Richmond. During the pre-match press conference, Ted tells an inquisitive Trent that he only wants to help Jamie become better. Sam agrees to become an ambassador for Dubai Air, the club's sponsors, but pulls out when he learns of the environmental atrocities of their sister company, Seaosn Oil in Nigeria. Jamie continues to find it hard to blend into the team, even after a public apology. Meanwhile, Rebecca informs Richard, the CEO of Seaosn Oil, of Sam's decision and is told to let Sam off the team. However, after a discussion with Nora, her goddaughter and daughter to Sassy, Rebecca decides to go against Richard's wishes, regardless of the consequences. In their next match, Sam leads an open protest against Dubai Air, which stops Seaosn Oil's operation in Nigeria and mends his fractured relationship with Jamie. It's Christmas. To celebrate, the team shares gifts among themselves, and Higgins invites those too far from home to join him for his family dinner. Having nowhere to go, Ted stays home, FaceTimes his son, and then intends to drink the night away until Rebecca comes and gets him out of the house. On the other hand, Keeley and Roy spend theirs going from house to house, searching for a dentist for Phoebe, who has developed a bad case of halitosis. After finding a dentist, Roy takes the duo to the kid who had insulted Phoebe earlier and gets the child to apologize. After playing Santa's elves and sharing gifts from house to house, they set up a band in front of Higgins' house, and they all sing The Night Away. Nathan tries to book a window-side table at a restaurant to mark his parents' anniversary, but can't get through to the receptionist due to his low self-esteem. So, he seeks help from Rebecca and Keeley. Back at the club, the team suffers a loss, and Ted decides to seek help from Roy to ease the tension on the team captain's shoulders. He also tries to bring Roy in as a coach, but Roy turns him down. Rebecca, willing to go searching for love again, finally decides to join Keeley's dating app and stumbles on an anonymous user who she feels a connection with. Thanks to Rebecca and Keeley's advice, Nathan is finally able to get the window side table for his parents. Another match day comes, and Roy's efforts seem to have taken effect as Isaac appears to be happy during the warm-up. On the other hand, Roy gets an epiphany and ditches punditry in favor of coaching the Richmond team. Rebecca's mom, Deborah, shows up at her house with news that she has left her husband again, due to negligence and disrespect. Rebecca takes it calmly and invites Ted over for lunch with the both of them. At the club, Jamie discovers that though he's gotten back with the team, he may have to convince Roy that he's turned a new leaf. On match day, Richmond and Tottenham struggle for a goal in the first 30 minutes, until Jamie puts Richmond in front shortly before halftime. However, things take a sordid turn towards the close of the match, when Ted suffers a panic attack, causing him to leave unceremoniously. His departure disorganizes the team and opens a window for Tottenham to level up. Nathan steps up amidst the ensuing devastation and introduces a game plan that wins Richmond the match. Nathan gets obsessively excited by the attention he gets for being the match winner. Later that night, Ted makes an appointment with Dr. Sharon Fieldstone. Ted goes over to Sharon's to thank her for the previous night. He feels better, so he opts out of his appointment with her. However, he shows up the next day, only to tell her why he distrusts therapy. Keely, who has started finding Roy's constant presence an issue, confides in Rebecca and Higgins. They ask her to come clean with Roy, but she feels reluctant to do so. Sam and Rebecca's relationship with their prospective dates on the dating app Banter seems to be progressing, but they don't know yet that they're speaking to each other. At Keely's home, she's finally able to come clean with Roy, but the latter doesn't take it well until Jamie inadvertently helps him understand better. While Ted's at the bar, Trent walks up to him asking for an official statement regarding his premature departure in the last match. Ted evades the truth, choosing to stick with the narrative that it was a case of food poisoning. Sharon starts seeking advice from another therapist on how to get through to Ted. On her way to work, she gets into an accident, and Ted shows up at the hospital after getting her voicemails. At the club, Sam's mystery date at Banter finally agrees to meet, leading him to request his haircut of the season from Isaac, the team's captain. All's not as rosy with Roy, who has come to pick Phoebe from school because she's starting to cuss a lot. However, all ends well when he gets her to promise to stop. Sam and Rebecca finally discover they've been speaking to themselves all the while and have to call the date off, albeit reluctantly. Ted tells his coaches the real reason he left the match against Tottenham, but it doesn't stop the team from receiving a 5-0 whooping from Manchester City. Jamie's father finds his son in the locker room and subjects him to emotional abuse until Baird forcefully evicts him. Roy comforts a broken Jamie, which makes Ted tell Sharon about his father's death. Later that night, Sam shows up at Rebecca's house and she lets him in. After the Man City match, Baird decides to return home alone. His relationship with Jane, his girlfriend, seems to have hit a rocky patch and it destabilizes him. He drinks at the pub with a trio of locals, but have to leave for Bone and Honey when the pub closes. Bone and Honey is an exclusive club, but Baird cons their way in. Baird's luck runs out and he's thrown out of the club, but that doesn't spell the end of his misfortunes. As the night pans out, Baird goes from being chased by a woman's boyfriend to being beaten by Jamie's dad and a couple of his friends. Baird finds a ton of missed calls and texts from Jane and goes to patch things up with her. When he finds her in a club, they make up and decide to have fun through the night. The following day, he shows up at work feeling better than he did the previous day. Rebecca and Sam's morning, after a splendid night together, is sullied when Deborah brings news of her husband's death. As Keely and the coaches discuss the topic of funerals, the entire team decides to show their support by turning up for the funeral in formal attire. While Ted prepares for the funeral, he suffers another panic attack, forcing him to confide deeply in Sharon, after which he shows up at the funeral, though he arrives late. Rebecca lets Keely, Sassy, Deborah, and Nora know that she's dating Sam. Afterwards, she and her mother have a heart-to-heart regarding her father's infidelity. At the funeral proper, Rebecca is called up to say her eulogy. Unable to find the words, she segues into a song that the crowd joins in. After the funeral, Rupert returns Bex's shares of the club and whispers something to Nate before leaving. Realizing that she's scared of hurting, Rebecca decides to break up with Sam. With another win in the bag, Ted decides to focus on planning a farewell presentation for Sharon. While the teammates practice their goodbye choreography, Edwin Akufo, a Ghanaian billionaire, shows up intending to buy Sam for his Moroccan club. Rebecca opens up to Ted about her relationship with Sam and her unwillingness to let Edwin have him, and Ted advises her accordingly. Ted finds out that Sharon plans to leave covertly, and he confronts her in her home, after which they go to Mace for a drink. There, Ted says his goodbye. In an attempt to win Sam over, Edwin Akufo takes him to his newly acquired museum and Nigerian restaurant, and Sam decides to give Edwin an answer after their final match of the season. When Ted gets home, Trent texts him about his plan to release an article concerning his panic attack at the Tottenham game, and goes further to reveal Nathan as his source. The next morning, the article about Ted's panic attack is everywhere. Rebecca, Michelle, and Sharon inquire about his well-being amidst comments that question his coaching ability. Ted apologizes to the entire team for not telling them about the panic attack. Rebecca learns Rupert is the new owner of West Ham United when she celebrates with Keeley, who has just gotten an offer to start her own PR firm. Later that night, Baird, who knows that Trent's anonymous source was Nate, asks Ted about it, but Ted refrains from confronting Nate about it. On the match day, Richmond find themselves 2 goals down by the end of halftime. At the locker room, Nate pours out his bottled feelings to Ted, accusing him of abandoning him and setting him up for failure. He's angry that Ted takes the credit for his ideas and proceeds to ridicule Ted's nice guy character. Then he storms out when Ted tries to apologize. Richmond managed to nick a promotion back to the Premier League with a 2-2 draw. As the team celebrates, Nate leaves to coach West Ham United, Rupert's new club, while Sam decides to stay back, much to Edwin Akufo's chagrin.
Move it! Go! Go! Sir! Move! Coach! Go! Sir! Move! Coach! Go! Sir! Move! Coach! Go! Sir! Move! Coach! Go! Sir!